bad. Good.
Welcome, everyone, to Season 4, Episode 144 of the Premier Pod. I'm your host, Yash Bika, joined by my co-host, Tyler Chan. And in this episode, pretty much, basically all of it is down to Championship Sunday, which is coming up this Sunday. A pretty big one because, obviously, the main talking point is the title decider between Manchester City and Liverpool. Obviously, Liverpool coming off a huge FA Cup win against Chelsea, which also went to penalties again. But they won the FA Cup. They are facing, I believe, is it Wolves? I don't know
Yep.
who are they facing?
Wolves.
Yeah, Wolves in the final game of the season. Actually, I think they played Wolves in the final game of the 2018-19 season as well, which is
Yeah, I believe you're
kind of
right
an odd.
about that.
Yeah, it's kind of an odd
Kind of
facto right
spooky.
there. Yeah, weird one there, but they are playing Wolves on Sunday, but Manchester City will play Aston Villa on Sunday. Obviously, Aston Villa under Steven Gerrard and Felipe Coutinho, so two former Liverpool, obviously a Liverpool legend, and Felipe Coutinho, who was a big Liverpool playmaker for them. So maybe there could be some Liverpool magic that helps spook City a bit, that could sleep them up, and then that could lead into Liverpool potentially winning the title. But some pretty big ones there. I mean, I guess starting off with like the FA Cup win, I know it went back to penalties again, but it was a pretty hard fought affair. But I mean, Liverpool just ended up coming back on top. Chelsea, Mason Mount, missing the penalty, which basically sealed the title for Liverpool with Tamikas or how do you Costas
Samikas.
Samikas scoring the winning pen, and yeah, from there delirium.
The Greek Scouser with the game-ending penalty right there. It was a really hard-fought win, like I would say. It was very 50-50 once I got to penalties, and the game was very back and forth. Even though there weren't any goals, oh my gosh, my heart was in my hands. It could have been 2-2, I feel like, at certain points. There's just so many chances that just hit the post, went a little wide from either side. Like Pulisic had a really good opportunity for Chelsea. Luis Diaz had a man of the match performance, and even at certain points also hit the post at certain points. But I feel like this game, it could have been a toss up, but like I feel like that little bit of experience of having been in these kind of cup finals and finishing them off. Whereas Chelsea, this is the third FA Cup final in a row, but they just can't get over that line. They just can't get
Yeah,
over that finish
tough
to
one.
get the final win.
The
And it's kind of
last
ironic.
FA Cup win came against Manchester United.
Gosh dang, that hurts. That hurts. But I mean, I feel like it's almost like a pseudo Buffalo Bill situation where they made it to a Super Bowl 3 seasons in a row, and then they've
Yeah.
lost 3 seasons in a row. Even though it's not like the Champions League final, this is just FA Cup final, but it's still like
Yeah.
one of the biggest domestic cups you can get. So it's kind of
Yeah.
rough for any Chelsea fans out there. Also, it's kind of rough that they lost to Liverpool once again in a penalty shootout. No Kepa this time. They kept Mendy
Yeah.
in goal, and
It's also a
kind
tough one because this is the third I guess cup final in a row they've lost to Liverpool in penalties, because back in 2019 they played in the UEFA Super Cup and Adrian was the starting goalkeeper. He beat them in penalties, beat Chelsea in penalties, and then in 2022 in the League Cup, Carabao Cup, how do you say his
Calvin
Keller?
Keller. Yeah.
Calvin Keller was in goal, stopped them, won the League Cup, and then this one in the 2022 FA Cup, Ali Sun was in goal and obviously beat Chelsea in penalties. So it's basically all three of Liverpool's keepers have beaten Chelsea in cup
Yeah.
finals.
That's a good stat too. It's just like it was always a different keeper for Liverpool in these kind of shootouts, and they all kind of worked out. And I was kind of surprised too because this lineup that Liverpool also had, that are the penalty kick takers, we didn't have three of our, I would say, top five takers. We didn't have Salah, we didn't have Fabinho, and we didn't have Van Dijk. So I was a little nervous going into the shootout, but everyone stepped up. Mane unfortunately had his saved by his fellow Senegalese
Countrymen.
goalkeeper, your countryman right there. He had the game winner, but Mendy was all up in his head. But it's all good because Alisson came through and stopped Mason Mount. That was a little rough to see, but step up Samikas to
Yeah.
kind of seal it for Liverpool. And it was kind of ironic too because after that big win, Liverpool faced Southampton midweek, and they had 9 changes. I guess there's a lot of just mental, just kind of hurdles and just kind of refreshment to kind of get over that kind of big win. So they had nine
Yeah, and
different
Minamino
folks,
scored
and
against
Minamino
his former
stepped up.
club. Or no,
So there
I
we
guess his
go.
former loanee club.
Yeah, former lonely club, and it was a scrappy 2-1 win, but I mean it was a big 2-1 win, and it kind of showed how much depth kind of mattered because not only did Liverpool come off their 60th game of the season against Chelsea in an FA Cup final, but they had enough folks to still keep that title race competitive and get a scrappy win at St. Mary's against Southampton. So it's all coming together. I'm getting kind of scared in terms of like I know there's a few folks on this team that also are looking to leave the club in the summer, like Origi. Even Minamino, unfortunately, might be looking to greener pastures to get more playing time. But I
Yeah.
mean, it kind of shows that even though they don't play too often, when they get called up, they still are able to kind of play as if like they've been playing consistently. It's like to get thrown into a game like this just out of the blue, just start a game that's such a high pressure, high intensity game. I mean, it is Southampton, but I mean, it's a game that you just have to win and still manage to do it. That kind of goes to show how, I feel like the commentators and all the pundits were saying training for Liverpool has been working well and making sure the intensity stays there so that when these players do get called on, they can still act and get the win and act as if like, is not too crazy to have 9 changes in the starting 11 and have players like Harvey Elliott, who hasn't started since September, come into that
Yeah.
starting 11 and still get a result. So
Yeah.
now it's all riding up for Sunday, Championship Sunday, when all the
Yeah.
teams face off all at once
At the
for the
same
final
time.
match of the season to
Yeah,
see
really
who will
like the
get. Mhm.
yeah, I would say really like the biggest narrative is just Liverpool City for the title, Tottenham Arsenal for top 4, and then um Burnley and Leeds for relegation for the last who gets the last relegation spot because everything else is set. But yeah, those are the
Mhm.
biggest ones. But obviously, the title comes down again on Championship Sunday, which it basically did in 2018-19, where Liverpool and City were neck and neck. But obviously, at that point, City was on a 13-game winning streak. Liverpool were on an 8-game winning streak heading into Championship Sunday. But now it's both teams are kind of coming in, I would say, at decent form. City almost slipped up and let West Ham get one on them, but then the City were able to make a comeback and could have won the game at the end. But Mahrez skied his penalty, I believe, skied or saved it, or had his penalty saved from Fabianski. But that was a big one because if City would have won that game, I think they would have won the title, I believe.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
yeah, they literally would have won the title. And Liverpool, if they would have dropped points against Southampton, they would have won City. It would have gifted City the title, I believe, or if it
Yes.
was a loss. So it's just
Yeah. If
crazy
they if they lost, yeah.
how fine the margins have been. Um, because it seems like whenever City looks like they're about to wrap up the title, Liverpool somehow find a way to just keep it going a little bit. But I will say, Tyler, I think uh, for Championship Sunday, coming purely as a Manchester United fan that doesn't want to see them do the quadruple, I think City will win the title. But I also think City do have um, quote unquote an easier an opponent. I know Coutinho and Gerrard and Villa can put up a fight, but I mean, there's a reason Villa are kind of still, in the bottom half of the table, and Manchester City are like at the top because I think Pep Guardiola. This is not a Champions League final, so I think Pep Guardiola. Unlike the Champions League, Manchester City typically have a better squad and depth of players than most teams in the Premier League, and I just think they're experience winning a ton of other Premier League titles in the past under Pep will kind of come through. And I think there's enough leadership to kind of get them through and just, I wouldn't say it would be a comfortable win over Villa, but I do think that it may be a little bit scrappy for the first 50 or so minutes, but I wouldn't be surprised for City to kind of pull through and ultimately get that win because that's all City need. If they get a win, the title's theirs.
But they have to win though,
Yeah.
because. But I mean, that's also assuming Liverpool wins as well, because Liverpool
Yeah.
they have to win.
Yeah.
But that's Stevie G magic, man. If Stevie G could help win Liverpool a title as the Aston Villa manager with not only Coutinho but other former Liverpool player Danny Ings up from the Grays over here. You never know. All they if if they can pull a draw against Man City and Liverpool win, then Liverpool will get the title. So they don't even have to win out against City. They don't even have to, they just can't lose. That's
Yeah.
essentially it. So I mean, it's a big ask, and this is basically a final for both teams. It's if Liverpool win, there's a shot at the title. If Man City win, that's a guaranteed title. So it is basically a cup final right here. It's kind of how you
Hmm.
can think about it for both teams. But man, imagine the storyline: Stevie G helps win Liverpool the title. But it'd be so tragic if Aston Villa gets the draw or win, and then I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. If
Liverpool end up drawing against
yeah,
Wolves
it'd
drawing.
be like all for nothing. Freaking Stevie G would be so mad. So we got to do it for not only him, but also just to keep that quadruple dream alive. It's coming, Yush. I know you don't want to hear it, but it's we got to believe. We got to believe. Oh my gosh, it's. I mean, at least if anything, if we're being realistic, there's still a big chance of getting at least a triple, like with Champions League, FA Cup, and Carabao Cup. That's probably like the more like sided for Liverpool's sake in terms of like we have the chance, like the higher chance of getting the triple rather than the quadruple. But to have the
Hmm.
chance still there in the final match of the season in the Premier League at least, that's huge. I don't think I think if Liverpool also do it, it'll be the first time, I think as you mentioned as well in a previous pod, that a English team has ever pulled off a quadruple in history.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I think Bayern may have done it, but I think Bayern. I mean, I think they've done it with. I think Bayern won every club competition you could. I think it was that 2019-20 season during that COVID stretch of like the Bundesliga, Champions League, DFB Pokal, German Super Cup, FIFA Club. I mean, they won everything. But I mean,
mhm,
that's their Bayern Munich. They kind of are used to doing things like that.
right.
But no, like you said, if Liverpool do it, they would be the first English team. Because what's also interesting is no English team has pulled off the treble since Manchester United did it in 98, 99, which is pretty crazy. Like they've been the last English team to pull off the domestic treble of League Cup, FA or excuse me, FA Cup, Premier League, and the Champions League. And we've seen
Mm,
Spanish teams do that. I think Barcelona are the most recent one with
yeah,
under
Barcelona.
Luis Enrique in the 2014-15 were the most recent ones, and then Bayern obviously. So yeah, it's not a very common thing to do triple, but obviously the quadruple is not very common at all. So
And I mean, there's also a kind of big, on top of that accolade, Klopp has finally won every single major trophy you can win while at Liverpool with that FA Cup
oh
win,
yeah,
because now he's won every single trophy you can win. So
yeah.
he's finished the collection, but now it's like, can he do the big thing? Can he do it? We'll see. It's not in our hands, so it's a little freaky, but I just gotta believe. You just gotta
Yeah.
believe, Yush. I know you
I'll
don't want
believe
to.
for City winning. It's the worst of the two
No.
evils, but I'd rather have City win than have
Oh my
Liverpool walk away with
gosh.
the quadruple.
Oh,
Uh,
well, I mean, you know what I'll be doing? It's gonna be one of those days where we're gonna have 10 screen, or I guess in this case, the only two games that I'll be really keeping my eyes on are Liverpool and City. So I have two screens up for Sunday. A
mhm.
laptop and TV, and just watching both. And then I know for you, Yosh, you might have 10 screens. You got to keep track of everything,
Luckily,
literally.
I'm actually not working Sunday, so
Oh, nice.
yeah.
You dodged a
So I
bullet.
don't have to worry about any of that.
Gosh
uh,
dang.
yeah, I'll probably. I mean, I'm still debating if it's even worth watching Manchester United's last game. I might tune into actually. I might tune in a little bit into the Tottenham Arsenal fiasco because I feel like that would be kind of spicy.
Hmm.
Because I feel like Tottenham could slip up, and then Arsenal they need to beat Everton. And Everton, we were going to put on a wild card. They're already promoted in the Premier League, so
Or
Everton don't really need to
staying.
do
Yeah.
anything. Yeah, they are staying in the Premier League. Sorry, they don't need to do anything anymore. They're safe. So it's like, do they even get motivated to try that hard in the final game of the season? So
They're probably
now
just
the
relieved.
pressure is
Yeah.
now all on Arsenal. So it's no longer they're facing a fidgety Everton team. They're now Arsenal has all the pressure now. So it'll be very interesting. The championship Sunday. There's a lot of interesting storylines coming down to the
Hmm.
wire.
It's a good thing for the Premier League because I know at least for other leagues, at least in America, like the NFL, they try to draw up
Yeah,
stories for everything. But I mean, for this Sunday, it was so dependent on all these results to kind of come through from the previous week for Liverpool to
yeah,
make sure they won, for for Arsenal also keeping this top four race, and then also just to see how the relegation battle is going to go. But I still
yeah,
think Manchester United, this could be a cathartic moment for you guys. Just watching this final game, you'd be like, all right, this is the last time I have to see this. I have to
yeah.
see
Wasn't it?
these
Wasn't it
folks.
like It was like wasn't it the championship Sunday like 7 years or 8 years ago? At this point, it was like Steven Gerrard's last game. Like they lost like 6-0 to Stoke.
No,
Oh,
6-1.
oh,
It was
I feel like that's probably what's gonna happen. So I think if like it's funny, I think I read a stat if Manchester United do lose, I guess it's probably a good segue to Manchester United. If they do lose on Championship Sunday, it'd be the first season they finish with a negative goal differential since like 89-90 in the top flight,
jeez.
1989 to 1990. So
Y'all
yeah, they
making
literally have a
records.
plus. They literally have a +1 goal differential. So they need to win. I think the way it goes, they need to win to secure a Europa League finish. Because if West Ham win as well and Manchester United don't win, United will be in the Conference League while West Ham will be in the Europa League. But I think United have the I guess upper hand because even though the goal differential is bad, I think they also have the head to head over West Ham in the Premier League. But I think they're 1 point above them. I don't have the table with me
They're
right now, but
they're 2 points above West Ham right now.
okay. So they essentially just need to win because if they don't win, then it's kind of
You're gonna
kind of
be in that
screwed. But
green league, man. You're gonna be in that green competition,
yeah,
the
so I'm
Europa
hoping
Conference League.
I'm hoping this. I want the season to end, but I'm really hoping they can just finish it out, get a win for the last one of the season, and then just put the season behind them because it's been like I said this whole season. It's been tough. It's been a struggle. Uh,
I don't think you would want to watch Manchester United next season against some random team in Uzbekistan or
yeah, no,
some random
I'd
team in like
rather I'd
East
rather have them be in the
Bulgaria.
Europa League. I'd rather have them be in the Europa League at least.
Oh my
Because I think
gosh.
it would give them like the best chance for another trophy. But outside of that, there just hasn't been much going on with the club. I think it's kind of just waiting for the season to end. But I will say Eric Ten Hag, he actually cut his vacation short, or basically had no vacation because he has kind of gone straight into work of identifying and having exit interviews with Manchester United players, and
Mhm.
essentially identifying who he wants to have on for the summer. Because he just basically said he gave himself 1 day or one night to celebrate with Ajax, and then he said the next stop is Manchester United because there's a lot of work to be done. And he's actually kind of made some moves already. He basically filled out the rest of his coaching staff. He got his number two, I think his name is Mitchell Van. I can't remember his exact name, but he was his number two at Ajax, so he brought him over from Ajax, and then also Steve McLaren, who was actually a pretty big influence slash assistant under the Sir Alex Ferguson era, who I believe Eric Ten Hag worked closely with when he was at trying to remember when he was early on in Ajax or another club that I'm kind of forgetting, but him and Eric Ten Hag have a pretty good relationship with each other. So I know a lot of people are pretty excited about him kind of getting the full coaching staff he wants. So now that he's starting to fill that out, he's also basically been on the lookout of identifying who to keep on for the rest of this squad, and he's actually kind of made some. There's been some reports that players like Aaron Wan-Bissaka, some other players as well, that are basically going to be put up for sale this summer because Eric Ten Hag doesn't see them. He doesn't view them. Doesn't feel like they have a future um, with his plans. And there's also been reports that he wants to keep Ronaldo on for the end of his contract and work with him, but he also wants to sign two midfielders, a center back, and a striker for the transfer window. So I would say it's been pretty positive signs for going into the summer window. It definitely seems like Eric Ten Hag is really committed. He's getting the coaching staff he wants and kind of identifying already some big pieces that need to be solved right away. And there's been some big players kind of linked to Manchester United. One of them is Frankie de Jong. Rumor has kind of cooled off a bit since last week, but it seems like Barcelona are still in the financial despair they are, even though there are reports basically linking them to signing Robert Lewandowski on a free because I think Lewandowski is going to be leaving. He
Mhm.
confirmed he's leaving after the end of this season. So it seems like him and Barcelona are going to sign a contract, but because of that, our Barcelona need to offload some wages, and I think because of that, they're going to have to sell some sort of good players for them. And I think Frankie De Jong has kind of been on the fringe a bit. I know there's been mixed reports about saying Xavi, he likes him, but then the Barcelona board is saying that any player is kind of up for sale right now if the price is right. And I feel like with the relationship that Eric Ten Hag has, even though Manchester United won't be in the Champions League under De Jong, I feel like that can be enough to kind of sway him. And I feel like Barcelona could be in a position where they're kind of forced to sell. And I think that could be the point where Manchester United could kind of come in and swoop in for him. And I did read a lot of kind of some scouting reports on him. I know, I guess a lot of people, I will say this, Frankie de Jong, he's not like a pure like central defensive midfielder like a Fabinho who's going to just sit
Mhm.
in the hole and just dictate play. A lot of people were kind of like, he's like Paul Pogba, but like the less flashier version of him, where he's like a box to box, where he likes going up and down the midfield, and he likes playing as like an eight. But you need a like a proper CDM to kind of cover for him. He can't be like the lone CDM, and I think that's where he struggled a bit under Barcelona, where they were kind of using him as kind of being the Busquets replacement. But he kind of struggled in that role. But once they kind of found the right role for him, he was able to kind of pick up his performances a bit. So I think De Jong would be a really good signing because we do need midfielders, and he'd be a good player to recycle the play, keep the ball moving, and just kind of keep the overall possession play well. But we would need to sign a proper central defensive midfielder as well to kind of cover for him as well.
That'd be such a big signing, Frankie De Jong. He literally
Yeah,
is like, if I were to equivalent him to like a certain player, it probably would be someone like a Sergio Busquets, where he's a little defensive, but he's not, a pure CDM like a Fabinho, and he's
yeah,
not attacking either. So you can't really say he's like equivalent to like an Emre Can, who's just gonna
yeah,
bomb up and down the field and then like score the occasional banger here and there. He's very much like he's gonna sit in the middle of the field, distribute the ball, control tempo. So almost like I guess almost like a Tony Cruz, except once again he doesn't score. It's kind of
yeah.
weird. He's very much just like, I only pass. That's all I do, and then
hmm
occasionally score like a header goal or something like that here and there. But that'd be big because I know for Barcelona at least, he seemed like the right kind of player, just a player that just likes to control tempo and pass around. So for him to go to
hmm
Manchester United and be reunited with Ten Hag, that'd be interesting. But also, it's just interesting to see the other player that's kind of linked with him too. I think his name is Jurian Timbers. I
Yeah, the
just I
young
just know
center
about
back
him.
from
Yeah,
Ajax. Yeah,
I just know about
I
him
don't know
because
too
he's
much.
very
I don't know too
meta.
much about him, but yeah, I don't know too much about him. I know he's a pretty short center back, which is kind of concerning, especially in the Premier League.
Yeah,
But
5'10".
yeah, it's not the ideal height considering some of the strikers you face in the Premier League and the other people you're kind of going up against. But obviously, Ten Hag has worked under him at Ajax, and it seems like the move could happen for a relatively decent deal. It won't be too expensive. So I mean, if Ten Hag sees him as like a valuable piece to kind of progress, or even kind of not even be a starter from day one, but just be a nice backup piece or someone you develop on under the radar, I'm all for it because that's kind of how you need to develop these players, or how you need to how you build a club. Essentially, it's like you every player you sign doesn't need to be a starter from day one. They can kind of be the more low key signings where you work for them under a bit, get them adjusted, used to the system, develop them, and then they can slowly make their mark in the first team. I don't think every signing you make needs to be a home run hitter from day one.
That's true. But I mean, I will say Timbers, he got that team of the season for the Eredivisie. So he is promising. I'll say that. And he's very
Yeah.
meta. He's very fast. So
Oh, there
as
we
a
go.
center back. So there you go. So he's usable in FIFA. But
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of somewhat usable players, like one of the players that I saw on a report today that's maybe on his way out is Aaron Bissaka.
Yeah.
So who are you guys gonna get instead? Because like I know you just have like Dalot and like that's about it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I don't think you'll put Timbers at right back, even if you can
No,
bring Timbers in. So it's just like,
I am pretty interested who we're going to bring in. I know there's been talks about players like Ethan Lard, who's been he's like an academy fullback, a right back actually for Manchester United. That's kind of been someone that a lot of people within United have talked about as he could be the next guy to get like the next step into the first team. So maybe that could be the future. Maybe they try to promote Ethan Laird to be the new right back under like as a backup right back, and then maybe potentially overtake Dalot. But yeah, the Aaron Wan-Bissaka thing is very interesting. I think there were definitely a lot of reports because even under Ralph Rangnick, we saw that Aaron Wan-Bissaka was down the pecking order. It was Dalot who was preferred as the first team right back. So, um, and obviously Ralph Rangnick, he was the interim coach, and we're seeing Eric Ten Hag, who has basically come in now or just scouted from the outside and just identified that Wan-Bissaka can't fit his system. And yeah, it was interesting. There was actually a lot of, I guess, some talk within Manchester City fans that they were talking about they would potentially want to take Aaron Wan-Bissaka off Manchester United. And I thought that was really interesting. I don't know if I
Huh.
quite agree with that, but they were saying that like if they get Wan-Bissaka, he could be really useful in certain situations in games because he's a really good 1v1 defender in terms of just purely defensively. He's a good defender on 1v1 situations. But I don't know. I don't know if I quite see the fit there. I don't know if Crystal Palace is maybe they line up a loan for him to loan him back type thing. But definitely Manchester United will, if they do sell him, like they'll definitely be suffering a loss there because he's 25. He's still got a good amount of years with him, but he's 25 and they bought him for I believe the,
Like,
the the whole deal was like 61 million or something like
yeah,
that in total.
62 million. Yeah, something like
Yeah.
dollars.
It's a
It was
shame.
something
It's
crazy.
a shame.
Yeah.
It's a shame. He never developed into kind of developing his attacking, I guess, prowess. And that was a shame because he definitely did show a lot of signs his first two seasons of like he could be a solid right back for Manchester United. But I guess where the game is going and the type of coach we have hired, his skill set is not the most favorable for that type of style. And ultimately it was also, I guess, poor scouting on Manchester United. I think the report was like they scouted almost 100 plus right backs before they landed on Aaron Wan-Bissaka, which is just ridiculous. And I would say even under Ole, like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wasn't a Jose Mourinho-esque manager where all he cares about is defending. He wanted to play more offensive style. So it was just if they identified Wan Bissaka to have those weaknesses, it's just interesting that they kind of just went ahead and made the move for him anyways. But hopefully that's in the past of just scouting players and just going for them just because they're there. And we find the right profile players. But I do agree that I think that Dallo would be a better fit under Ten Hag, but also Dallo isn't the best right back because
Hmm.
he can be a bit erratic as well, and his defensive abilities I would say are definitely a lot lower than Wan Bissaka. But I don't know. It's a tough one. I know some people have said that why don't you try to convert Wan-Bissaka to a center back, but I'm also like that's this is not FIFA. You can't
It's
just turn
not
a
FIFA.
you can't just turn a fullback into a center back because I would say Wan-Bissaka, even though he's a good 1v1 defender, he also has a a pretty big deficiency in terms of covering the back post. He tends to lose his man a lot, so his positioning isn't the best. So I don't think that really works well as a center back, but yeah, one Bisaka I think could be the one that could get loaned out or sold during the summer as well.
Yeah, and even I mean, he has some decent height, 6 feet tall. Apparently,
Yeah.
159 pounds. Man, how am I? I'm heavier than him. I'm 5'8". Yeah, I'm just huge. But I mean, even then, Aaron Wan-Bissaka was also. I mean, even despite being one of 100 scouted apparent right backs for Manchester United, he was one of like the top players in that
Yeah,
position,
he
at
was
least in
Crystal
Premier League.
Palace player of the season
Yeah,
during the
and
2018-19 season.
I believe even for the England national team, it was basically a. They have so many right backs. It's insane. They have
Yeah.
like, Trent
Trent,
Alexander-Arnold, Kyle
Reese,
Walker, Reece James,
Trent,
Kieran Trippier,
yeah, and then
um,
Aaron Wan-Bissaka.
Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So it's like he was in that competition to get that starting spot. So it wouldn't be a surprise for Manchester United to go after him. Even for at that time too, like Trent wasn't an established right back at the time too. So Liverpool was still transitioning to their new right back, and then
Yeah,
ultimately it became
Reese
Trent.
James wasn't even in the picture. Like he only
Mhm.
burst on the scene the 2019-20 season, like midway through.
Right. And now all of a sudden, Aaron Wan-Bissaka he's just fallen off. It's just he didn't really hit that big projection that everyone was anticipating he'd get. But
Hmm.
I mean, I'm not sure if this is a correct kind of, I guess, rumor or news or kind of adage for Aaron Wan-Bissaka, but apparently even while he was still at Crystal Palace, he wasn't a starting right back to begin with. I think he was like a winger or something, but then during training, the coaches saw he was really good at shutting down Wilfred Zaha. So then they moved him at right back
Oh
all of a
yeah, I think
sudden.
I've heard that story. Yeah,
So I was like, wow, okay. It just became one of the best right backs in the Premier League. And now it's like starting to show. It's like, oh, maybe he's just good at one on ones and shutting down
yeah.
one player, and that's it. But
Yeah, I think
that's
I
yeah.
think he definitely works well for maybe a system where you are a bit more defensive because it doesn't rely on him kind of bombing forward and being on the front foot. And that's
Hmm.
probably why teams like Crystal Palace, maybe some of the more mid-table, lower half of the table Premier League teams, he can play well for them. It's almost like Nathaniel Klein when he was signed for Liverpool. I know he was Southampton's like one of Southampton's best players during that 2014-15 run, and a lot of clubs were linked with him. I think he was actually like I think he got called up to the England squad at one point as well. So he
Yeah.
was looking like kind of like a solid right back, and obviously Liverpool scooped him up, bottom, and he was pretty. I think he was solid for that one season, and then after that, once Klopp kind of came in, he basically identified as like I don't know if Klein is the guy, and he basically got a
Kleiny.
little yeah, I got phased out. Obviously, injuries didn't help him as well. But I remember watching Liverpool. I was like, man, what happened to Nathaniel Klein? And obviously now, I mean, he's just not that type of player. So I wonder if it's kind of the same story of Wan Bissaka. It looked like he was going to be the guy, and then a couple of seasons in, it's like maybe it's time to move on and go for someone else. And it's like Wan Bissaka could be kind of like Nathaniel Klein s, where now he's just kind of like bouncing around mid-table teams. Um,
Man,
which is
what a fall from grace. Back
it's
to Crystal
tough.
Palace, maybe, but I
Yeah, it's
mean,
tough. It's a tough life out there.
the one thing Wan Bissaka does have, though, he does have the physicality. He's still like
Yeah.
6 feet tall for a right back, and he has potential. And it's kind of surprising that he was struggling going on the attack, given he was a former winger, apparently. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
like
it's
what
just
the
an
deal
odd
is.
situation. It's just an
It's like,
odd
what is he?
situation.
Gosh dang. But
Yeah,
I mean,
we've
we'll see.
yeah, United have struggled with having a good right back for literally since Gary Neville has retired.
It's
Like
true. You
they've
had
had a
Valencia right back.
yeah, Valencia, Ashley Young played right back at one point. Raphael was pretty good, but then Louis Van Gaal like shipped him out. Um, so yeah, United have had a hard time replacing their fullbacks since Evra and Gary Neville have left. So I know Luke Shaw has been there, but like sometimes Luke Shaw can be a little like, what are we getting? I still think Luke Shaw is a good left back. I would want him to stay on because
Mhm.
Alex Telles has shown that he's just not it at left back, especially in the Premier League. He's just like he cannot cope with the physicality in the league. But I don't know. We'll see. I think all United fans are ready for the season to end, and they're looking forward to the summer window. But not
It's
to
gonna be a big window.
yeah, it'll be an exciting one. I'm excited to see the changes, but yeah, not to have this podcast dawn on Manchester United too much. But I guess moving on to our wild card topic, we did mention that Everton today on May 19th confirmed that they will stay up in the Premier League. They secured safety in the Premier League after coming back, excuse me, to beat um,
Crystal
Crystal
Palace.
Palace. They were Crystal Palace were 2-0 up at going into halftime, and then somehow Everton were able to basically make the comeback 3-2. And the fans actually stormed the pitch when Everton scored the winner on the 85th minute, and then they had to clear out the fans. And then obviously once full time hit, the scenes were crazy. Just literally all the fans buzzed in, got into the stadium, got inside the pitch. Like it was a great scene. It was really cool to see. Obviously, it looked like they had just won the Champions League or the league title or something, but they were struggling all season. It definitely looked like at times like, oh my gosh, they could get relegated, and they finally secured um, the safety, and you could just see the relief come off the players, Frank Lampard, everyone, and yeah, Everton are going to be in the Premier League or in the top flight for the 69th season in a row going into next season, which is
Of
pretty big.
course. Of course, it's 69th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Roger Bennett from the Men in Blazers on Twitter said he pooped his pants after Everton got that win. So I guess something good came out of that. But man, imagine if it was a season where Liverpool gets a quadruple and then Everton get relegated. That would be
Yeah.
Evertonians' nightmare. But
Yeah.
there you go.
I'm
Everton
glad.
stay
I'm
up.
glad. I like you said. I'm glad they're up because it is like they are like football heritage. They're like a mainstay
Yeah.
in the Premier League, and it would just be really weird to see them. It would almost be like Newcastle s, like them going back down to the champion. Even worse, I would say, because Everton have been more relevant than Newcastle in
Hmm.
the past century, or like the past decade. But I mean, yeah, you think about all the good players that have come out of Everton. Like obviously, the biggest one is Wayne Rooney. They've just had a lot of good players come out of there, and it's just it would be crazy to think that they would be in the championship. But luckily, they're in the Premier League again, and they probably won't. Hopefully, won't get close to getting relegated again in the near
Yeah, that
future.
was bizarre. That was like when Chelsea at one point was in that relegation talk for half a season.
Yeah,
And seeing Everton there, I mean, we're gonna have our Premier Pod awards next week, which is a slight spoiler, but I mean, it's Everton for most disappointing season so far. That
yeah,
was for them to have that reaction too of just relief and storming the field for not getting relegated when their expectations were going for a European
a
Cup
European.
competition.
Yeah,
What the heck? So
it
that
was
goes to
tough.
show.
It
Just
was
avoiding punishment.
but
Oh
it
my
was a
gosh.
tough season for them. But what that means going into Championship Sunday, as we said, that the final relegation spot will now come down to Burnley or Leeds. Burnley are right now have the advantage because they have a superior goal differential than Leeds, but Leeds, they're tied on points, Burnley and Leeds. So essentially, Leeds, they need to win their game, and they just got to hope that Burnley draw or lose, and that way Leeds stay up with Jesse Marsh. But yeah, that relegation spot is going to come down to it's going to be really interesting because it's like, who do you kind of go for? Because Leeds also have a ton of really good players that if they get relegated, could go for really cheap players like Rafinha, who've been
Rafinha.
linked to Barcelona. I think Liverpool at one point before Luis Diaz and some other big clubs. Calvin Phillips, who's been linked to a lot of big moves. So Leeds, I would say, have a ton of big players that they could lose out on a ton of money if they get relegated, which would be a huge loss for them. Meanwhile, Burnley, they do have some good players, but I would say I feel like they won't get affected as much. It sucks going down in the championship, but there's not like a lot of teams kind of going after their players right now compared to Leeds.
Yeah, Burnley is very much a smaller, like not no offense and like no means to disrespect, but like they're definitely like a smaller town club. Turf Moor. I don't know how many people fit in that stadium, but it's like one of those Bournemouth sized stadiums where it's like 20K max,
Yeah.
and it's like Burnley's kind of like a smaller town out there. But Leeds, we always hear of Leeds as like one of the former also kind of I'm not sure if you say blue chip teams, but it's just like also like a team that's just kind of more prolific that just have been teetering between championship and the Premier League, and they just so happen to get relegated those several seasons ago in the early 2000s. And they had certain players, like I believe like Ferdinand at one point as well,
Yeah. Rio
and
Ferdinand,
yeah,
James
Rio
Milner played
Ferdinand.
for them.
hmm So for them to get relegated, it's like, bro,
Yeah.
what the heck? And they lost Bielsa during the season. And like the expectations also were similar to Everton's, where they were supposed to go for like mid-table to upper mid-table, and now they're
Hmm.
on the brink of relegation with Jesse Marsh,
Yeah.
who I feel like has done a decent job since he's come in, but it's just like he's been given
Yeah.
such a big hill to climb with so many injuries. And I mean, you've seen like the frustration from the previous matches with Leeds, where some of their star players are just getting red cards. Like every game, I feel like there's
Yeah.
one red card for Leeds,
Daniel
just like
James
Arsenal.
getting a
Yeah,
red card.
Daniel James too. I'm like, gosh dang. So for me, I feel like if Burnley were to get relegated, they might have an easier shot of coming back up to the Premier League. And they are very much like the quote unquote Stoke City of the Premier League right now, where they play a much different way compared to everyone else. Very physical, very they just basically are pulling the Tennessee Titans or Atlanta Falcons kind of move right now, where just all their players are above 6'3". Like their star
Hmm.
striker right now, Weghorst is 6'6"
Yeah.
from
It used to be
Wolfsburg.
Chris Wood
Yeah,
before
he
the
used to be
January
Chris Wood.
transfer, who was
Also
also
like
really big.
6'4", something like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they just kind of
They're
win their
only
own
like I
way.
feel like they're only like skillful like wingers, Dwight McNeil.
Yeah, Dwight
That's literally where
McNeil
all the sauce
and
comes from.
also Goodmanson, but
Oh
he
yeah.
doesn't usually start. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but for some reason, like this team is just they win in such their own way. So I would kind of miss them if they were to get relegated, just because it's such a different team. It's such an English team, quote unquote. It's just like they just win on brute physicality. Whereas for Leeds, they've also had like their own style under Bielsa, and then also under now Jesse Marsh. It's a lot more high press, but it's just he didn't. I feel like he just didn't have enough time to really get it really in for a lead. So I don't know
Yeah.
if you were to,
It
if
would
I
be
were to,
tough.
yeah. So
Oh, go
I mean,
ahead.
if you were
Yeah, go
to
ahead.
pick like which teams are looking like they're probably going to go down between the two, I'm gonna have to say Leeds. It's just
Yeah, I think Leeds as well. I
unfortunately,
think
yeah.
they've just been struggling a lot this season, and yeah, it seems like whenever they do win, it's always out of crazy circumstances, almost like a 3-2 comeback or, a 2-2. It's always high scoring affairs, and they have conceded, I guess, second. They've conceded a lot of goals. I think Norwich are the only team that have conceded more goals than them in the
Yeah,
Premier
by
League.
one.
So yeah, so it's like their same problems that had last year, where they just are a leaky defense, carried them this year, but they haven't been scoring as much to help compromise that. So yeah, I unfortunately think Leeds will go down, and that means like a lot of their big players will be leaving on the cheap, back into the Premier League or to other big clubs. So
Hmm.
it's unfortunate, but I do think that Leeds will get the final relegation spot as well. But I guess quickly moving on to the teams that have been confirmed promoted. It's been kind of news for a while now, but it will be Fulham are back in the Premier League. Same, they're basically a yo-yo club at this point, same as Norwich. And then Bournemouth are finally back after a um, basically 2 seasons, I guess, hiatus from the Premier League. They're under Scott Parker, who oddly enough was the former Fulham caretaker manager when they were last in the Premier League. Fulham were. So yeah, Bournemouth under Scott Parker are now back in the Premier League, which will be a fun one because Bournemouth always have, under Eddie Howe, always been like that team that play. Uh, they play like they're not fighting for relegation. They always play like very smooth, total football type way. And yeah, it'll be exciting to see Bournemouth back, the Vitality Stadium back in action, and obviously Fulham are back as well.
Hmm. And Fulham, I was surprised. I think they scored 106 goals in the championship this
Yeah,
past season, which
Mitrovic
is
broke the scoring record in the championship.
yeah, Alexander Mitrovic. Yeah, that
Yeah,
guy, the
he's not going to
Serbian
score
guy.
any. I feel like he's probably only going to score four. I would say maybe
Four?
five. I would give him five in the Premier League.
Man, I think he's gonna. I feel
There's
like he's
no
gonna
way.
score a
I
decent
feel
bit
like
at the
every time he's
beginning.
in the championship, he always scores a ton, and then when he gets back in the Premier League, he can't score anything.
Man, but 10% of his total four. That's like some players by accident score four. Like Fabinho scored more than that this season. But I mean, Fulham, yeah, they're basically a yo-yo club, as Yash mentioned, where it's like a second Norwich. Like they'll probably get relegated next season. But for Mitrovic, I think he'll score more than that. I think he would be closer to
Mm,
7 or 8. I think they'll have some momentum being the top club from the championship being promoted, but they will lose probably Fabio Carvalho to Liverpool at this point, their star let
yeah,
center attacking mid.
wing. Yeah,
So I mean, we'll see. But I think for Fulham, that's kind of surprising how strong their attack was. So you never know if they can kind of replicate that. We'll see. But the competition between the Championship and the Premier League is so big. I wouldn't be surprised if Mitrovic ends up actually scoring like 5 total. But for 106 goals total, that's insane. And Bournemouth once
yeah,
again, I'm also surprised they're already back because Eddie Howe,
yeah,
he was their main, what's it called? Like, mastermind behind bringing this club all the way from, I believe, League Two all the way into the Premier
yeah.
League all those years ago. And now without him, I thought they'd be struggling for a while, but they already came back.
Hmm.
So the foundations there are looking pretty good. And I really don't know too much about him. So it'd be interesting to see a reunion between Ryan Fraser and Eddie Howe at Newcastle versus Bournemouth. That'll be a very
Yeah,
interesting match next season. And it's gonna be
that'll
some
be a really good one.
you wonder
Yeah,
how
no.
that's gonna go. Also, Callum Wilson too, the striker at
Hmm.
Newcastle. It just all ended up
Yeah,
there, and they're just seeing him again. But
yeah.
third
So
match,
it'll be
or like, I guess like the third team. Sorry to cut you off there, but the third team that'll also be promoted to the Premier League will most likely be either Nottingham Forest or Huddersfield. Looks like at this point, with the
yeah,
final playoff match being reported to be in a couple weeks. So we'll see who's the third team. But Nottingham Forest, I kind of want to see a new team in the Premier League. We've seen Huddersfield
yeah,
there. They kind of gotten away a few seasons ago with having a really good defense and then just
yeah.
scraping by 1-0s and then ultimately got relegated the following season. But
Hmm.
Nottingham Forest is a prolific team. Like they were a team in the 70s that won the Champions League twice. And
Yeah,
they just been sitting in the championship for I don't even know how
forever.
long. It's been like decades, but they're
Yeah.
they're on the brink of coming back. Santosh, our listener, is very excited. He has their jersey for some reason, so that'll be a big move. And I just hope if either team, one of these two teams, make it to the Premier League, it doesn't become a situation where it's like, all right, they're just gonna just sit there and then just wait to get relegated, because it'll be interesting to see kind of like these newer teams. It's kind of like a new, fresh start. But I mean,
Yeah.
because like you get some surprises like Brentford this season getting 11th
Hmm.
at this point. But
Yeah.
you got other teams like Norwich and Watford going straight back down.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited to see Nottingham Forest. I feel like that would be a pretty good team to like kind of see what they're about back in the Premier League or in the Premier League, because like you said, they've not been in it for so long
Mhm.
and they've just been stuck in the championship uh I guess hole for a very long time. So yeah, the championship teams are going to be pretty interesting. I do feel like we've kind of gotten a pattern of like seeing the same two teams kind of get promoted again, and then there's a random third team. So maybe
Mhm.
Nottingham will be that random third team this time, and we'll see what happens. But I'm excited.
I'm still a little sad though that Luton Town didn't get into the playoff final, because they're, if you don't know who they are, you got to Google them. Like their stadium is like a hole in the wall, like restaurant almost looking. It's like it's a building, and then it has like one door that you just kind of go into, and I think the max capacity of their stadium is 10,000. That's insane. I'm like, imagine that team in the Premier League. Imagine Liverpool going to Luton Town for a Premier League match. I feel like they'd probably get obliterated, but it'd just be so funny just to see a team like that in the Premier League. It's like, how did they even make it all the way here? Unfortunately, they lost in the playoffs already. Um, I believe to not wait. It's either Nottingham Forest or Huddersfield, because they're already in like the second round. But man, imagine like Luton Town of all teams make it this far, but it'll be Huddersfield and Nottingham Forest instead that'll be going at that third spot. But I want
Yeah.
to give a little shout out to Luton Town folks over there. You guys are so
Hmm.
close. But
Yeah, it'll be crazy one day when we see QPR make a comeback to the Premier League.
I remember
They're,
QPR. Man,
yeah, it's been a while. I think their
has
last
been a
season was
while.
2014-15. It's like 8 years ago or almost. Yeah, that's a long
It's
time.
the anniversary of the Aguero goal, so
Yeah.
that historic one against QPR to seal Man City that title. So it'd be really ironic if Man City were to lose the title on the final day to Liverpool playing something very similar. It has to happen now
We'll
on their
see.
anniversary.
Man, that'll be a full circle moment right there. But
Please.
yeah,
I'm praying.
we'll s- we'll
I'm
see
not a
what
very
happens.
religious
But
man, but I'm praying.
I'll be hoping that Man City win, like I said earlier. But you know, obviously Tyler's going all in for Liverpool as he should. But uh, yeah, I guess that was kind of our wild card section right there. We just wanted to mention the two teams that will be coming up for the Premier League and possibly the new third team we could be seeing for the next season. But as we always say, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Premier Pod to catch video versions of this podcast. You can also give us a follow at the Premier Pod on Instagram and Twitter. Send us any questions or any DMs or any possible podcast topics or wildcard topics for our next episode. We'll be sure to reply back to any questions we get from there. And if you listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, please make sure to leave us a review or rating. It helps boost our podcast up to more people. And we have been noticing they're actually been getting a lot of downloads recently. So we
Yeah.
do appreciate everyone that's taken the time to listen, because, yeah, it seems like it's reaching a wider audience. So thank you to everyone that's taken the time to listen recently, because it's been great to see that. And yeah, it's just awesome knowing that you guys are listening and enjoying the content. So thanks again for listening. And yeah, that kind of wraps up season 4, episode 144 of the Premier Pod. Thanks again for listening. Peace.
Peace.